starting yesterday, the U.S. is receiving its first batch of white South African nationals that have been extended the privilege of coming to the United States as refugees from South Africa. This first batch is 8,000 of these people. So the American people don't want this. These Afrikaners are not being racially discriminated against. I worked in South Africa in 2017 and 2018 for their National Assembly. And I was able to meet some of these characters because they have a party in the parliament there called the Rise Hide
oh my God.
Something First party. It's a minority party, and their party fundamental.
It's called MAGA, America First. It's so funny. It's, the crazy part about this is that you look at some of the MAGA supporters, right? And it just screams a certain type of a person.
The only Africans President Trump has paved a quick path for are these South Africans. And yes, they are white. They are Afrikaners, descendants of Dutch settlers to South Africa. This is the first group of people granted refugee status to enter the U.S. since the president entered his second term. On February 7th, President Trump signed this executive order carving out an exception for the Afrikaners, the white minority who created the racist apartheid regime in South Africa and ruled there cruelly and brutally until 1994. When black South Africans, the overwhelming majority of South Africans, were allowed to vote for the first time, and they voted for that man, Nelson Mandela. Afrikaners took land from black people in South Africa, repressed them, and in the 3 decades since the end of apartheid, they still have all the land they took.
The party is based on 2 fundamentals, okay? These are very racist people, the most racist I have ever heard in my life come out of these people's mouths. And the fundamentals of their party, their politics, is the staunch opposition to affirmative action and the staunch opposition to black economic empowerment. These people are descendants of the colonialists from the Netherlands. They came into South Africa in 1948 and before that, really. And stole all of the land. So they make up like 13% of the population in South Africa, and they own like 90.
Yeah, and not only that, because they're Nazis as well. Let's not forget that they're Nazis. They're Germans.
95% of the land. Like literally one person will have 20 or 25,000 acres that they and their lineage stole. And they are colonialist minded to this day. They are slave mentality, like slave owning mentality. They are, they exist in South Africa, and black people are not allowed where they live unless they have a permit for work, like a housemaid or something. And they're the cause for South Africa being one of the most unequal countries in the world, according to the World Bank, to this day. And while apartheid ended in 1990, you wouldn't know it going to South Africa by the way that the black people, the black South Africans, are treated versus these and that is what they are. They are ignorant, evil people. I mean, they call themselves Boers and like that. I'm telling you, the stuff that they say, Boers. And it's like every single one of them that I met that are almost 200 of them in this party. I didn't work for this party. This party is just in the assembly. All are like that. Like they are like, in their regular conversation are like, black people don't have no intelligence. And this is what they say all the time, right? And it's why there's racial divide in South Africa like it is, because this minority still has a grip. So,
but I gotta give it to Trump that at least we're having the conversation. At least now it's world news. And at the same time, Traore is also popping off. So I guess it's a perfect storm of just things which are happening right now in Africa, which is both shining a huge light on what has been happening in South Africa, Namibia, and all of these like countries, because we wouldn't have had this debate if Trump did not exist and he wasn't trumping.
Donald Trump, at the behest of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, with their insistence that these particular group of white people are facing racial discrimination because the National Assembly, the government of South Africa, has enacted a land back policy, which is technically expropriation without compensation, which you stole the land. You don't need to be compensated to have one person, and they will tell you, we worked hard for this land. You didn't work. This is what they believe, and it's 20,000 acres, and one person will tell you that his grandfather worked hard for the land. His grandfather came from Israel and the Netherlands. And
if you think of it, right, 20,000 acres, that's like owning the whole Stockholm and a little bit more. Do you think I could own the whole Stockholm without there being some form of retribution? I have never been when I've been in Namibia, in Katutura, I've never been there in Katutura in the slums and seen a white man walking around. If the Afrikaners were walking around and they were actually interacting with us, then that would be okay. If it was 50-50, we lived in the same neighborhoods and all of that, then that would be okay. But Namibia is almost exactly like South Africa when it comes to this question. They came, they took all of our land. Is it okay for us to say, like, we want it back? That's it. And we're not even asking for like all of it back. Some of it. At least you get 30 and we get 70. At least that. But they want it all. And that's why I'm saying, like, capitalism is about to collapse because the richest people, they forgot that in order for capitalism to work, you need to have a middle class. You need to have some people which are investing, some people which are going to the football matches, some people which are paying the taxes, some people which are buying the cars. You need to have that. Now, if you just have the richest people and the poorest people, it's not going to work.
Stole the land by murdering the people that had had it for generations. And these people that are coming to the United States, I do not like them, and nobody else is going to like them. They're not coming here because they are under oppression. They are coming here with a sense of entitlement and their wealth, and for a reason. But as they're being provided refugee status only as the exception to the rule, everyone else, no one gets this status ever again because the program is being discontinued. For 12 months at least, they have housing completely paid for. They have all of their food, all of their clothing, all of their amenities, cell phones and travel vouchers. In some cases, even they will be provided vehicles. Guess who pays for all of that when it comes down to the bottom sifting? U.S. taxpayer funds are who get those funds are derived from U.S. taxpayer funds.
True.
When everybody was yapping about the people that, like, Florida and Texas was flying to New York, the migrants last year and the year before that, and they were saying they're getting vouchers and they're getting free food and subsidies, and they weren't. Well, these 8.
But not only that, like, think of the veterans. Think of the people which actually live in America, which went abroad to fight for their country, and they're not getting housing. They're not being even treated in the same way as these refugees are getting treated.
Black South Africans, who make up over 80% of the population, still only own around 4% of private land. Now, President Trump was asked why these Afrikaners were allowed to enter the U.S.
Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
Good day, President Trump. My name is Jason Bartlett, and I'm a white South African living in your beautiful country of America. And you and I, sir, have some unfinished business. So I trust that you will be getting this message shortly, and I'm sure you know a lot about it already. President Trump, in 2020, on the 1st of January, I started walking from Austin, Texas to the White House, and I completed my mission. However, my mission was to sit down and talk to you about the farm murders and the brutal killings of white people in South Africa. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic of COVID,
But you guys were killing blacks. You came there and you committed genocide. And now you're asking for sympathy from Trump. The irony. This is narcissism. I know it's overused, but this is what it is. This is how it looks like. The narcissist. He comes, he does something wrong, and then he blames everyone else for his problems. No, it was them, they did it. You're not even acknowledging what you did.
Was unable to meet with you, sir. So, seeing though my people in South Africa do not have a face or a voice, I'd like to reinitiate our meeting, sir. I would like to come and see you at the White House. I'd like to talk to you and possibly Elon Musk about our atrocities happening to us. And I know you've signed an executive order for white Afrikaners to come to South Africa on refugee status. And not only do I want to thank you in person and take my hat off to you, I want to sit down and talk to you and establish a plan how to resettle the Afrikaner in America so that we can make the agricultural sector of America great again. America has its issues, and we as the white farmers and the white people of South Africa would like to help make America great again, from the bottom all the way to the top. We're here to support you, and we are here to encourage you, and as a world leader, we look up to you, sir. So thank you very much to everybody that's...
Hey, you gotta suck on another guy's meat now. You went to America and now you gotta get on your knees and you gotta start sucking. You buddy, you suck that meat good. You put it in your mouth. Make sure that Trump's meat is all in your mouth, buddy.
Why is Donald Trump offering refugee status to me and my people? And what does the data say about the real danger here? I'm an Afrikaner, a South African, currently living in the UK, and I was horrified to see the news that Donald Trump has offered the Afrikaner people from South Africa refugee status, and the fact that it's now also been picked up by the BBC and reported on. So I figured I'd pop on here to share just a few proven facts, and then you can make up your own mind. The land expropriation bill that was passed by the South African government is something that we have been discussing for decades, as it seeks to address the fact that black people had their land taken from them by the apartheid government, but also obviously initially under colonialism a few hundred years ago. And this seeks to address the structural imbalance inherent in most land is owned by white people, but agricultural land particularly is owned largely by Afrikaner people. So who are the Afrikaners? You might have heard about Charlize Theron or the UFC fighter Dricus du Plessis.
But Charlize is hot, right? I'm not even gonna lie, she is hot. She was the world's most beautifulest girl. She was.
Author Ernie Els or Louis Oosthuis. All of us from a tiny group of people. About 11.5 million Afrikaans-speaking people in South Africa, but more than half of us are not white. So it's not Afrikaans-speaking people, but all Afrikaners are Afrikaans-speaking. It's also not all white people in South Africa. Many white people in South Africa speak English as a first language. So we are a minority within a minority within a minority. About 3.5 million people. And a lot of the reporting around the land expropriation and the situation of the Afrikaner in South African society is around this concept of some sort of white genocide. Homer Brody wrote a phenomenal book about farm killings that points to the data that says you have about 1% of all homicides in South Africa taking place on farms and the families of farmers. And so whereas the homicide rate in South Africa is shockingly high and a terrible statistic whichever way and wherever it happens, the concept around a white genocide is completely misplaced. I do look at this whole story and wonder, what is this dog whistle meant to be distracting our attention away from? For what it's worth, Elon is not an Afrikaner. We wish he was also not South African.
Damn. I don't jump on Elon, bro. Don't jump. That's your guy. That's your boyfriend. No, okay. I have to say this. I respect her for actually coming with facts, because that's how it is. And for Trump to be so misinformed, he's the president of the United States. He should know this. They should brief him about this, but it's crazy because the truth is that people came to Africa, they stole land. And all we're saying is, can we at least get our land back? That's it. Somebody came into my house, took all my things, and I said, you know what? I paid for those things. Can I at least get my things back?
To South Africa now, where a convicted murderer who killed dozens of black men during the racist apartheid era of white minority rule has claimed that the police sanctioned his violence. Louis van Schoor, a former security guard, was jailed for 7 murders in 1992, but was released on parole 12 years later. South Africa's police haven't commented. Isa Jacobson from BBC Africa Eye has tracked him down.
I was a crime fighter, and if you're successful, then you're going to be called monsters and serial killer and whatever you want to, which I don't agree with.
During a 3-year bloodbath in the 1980s, Louis van Schoor killed at least 39 people in the South African city of East London. All of his victims were black. The youngest was just 12 years old. Van Schoor killed all of his victims during apartheid in South Africa, a brutal system of white supremacist rule. Many of apartheid's worst killers were controversially released after serving relatively short sentences. Men like Eugene de Kock, nicknamed Prime Evil, who confessed to murdering hundreds of activists, and Janus Valles, who assassinated popular anti-apartheid activist. But it's Louis van Schoor who I have been investigating most closely. Louis van Schoor was a security guard, guarding white-owned businesses. He had these special alarms, and alarms usually make a sound, but his were silent. And so that meant he could surprise any intruder. They would not know he was coming. He was a kind of vigilante killer, the great savior of the white community. The relatives of Van Schoor's victims have struggled to find closure.
When my father went missing, I was 6 years old. And I found out 2 years later that my father died and that he was killed by Van Schoor. Sometimes I sit down and the tears just fall from the heartbreak because of the pain that I feel.
Van Schoor was arrested in 1991 and convicted of 7 murders. But he only served 12 years in jail, and more than 30 of his killings are still categorized as justifiable by the police. I went to confront Van Schoor in person about his killings.
It's a horror show. It's a bloodbath. This is a 12-year-old.
Yeah, well, he looks much different lying there than what he was at night.
Your job was not to kill. Your job was to apprehend. You are a serial killer, you know. These are serial killings.
You're stepping over the line now. Never have I been proven by court a serial killer.
Is there nowhere in you that feels some shame for these atrocities?
I'm sorry, no.